I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
Hello, and welcome to a special Thursday edition of the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Michael Mataluni is still a bit under the weather and unable to open up the Singularity Lab for us, so here we are. Mike is sounding a little bit better, though. I talked with him and Lou this morning, along with Philip Shane and company on the podcast, What the If? It was a real fun conversation, exploring how people with different viewpoints regarding UAP can have productive conversations instead of talking past or at each other. I recommend you all find What the If wherever you consume podcasts and subscribe. You'll thank me later. Also, make sure you're subscribed and have rung that bell over here at UCR. Otherwise, you might miss your chance to participate live when these last-minute schedule changes happen. It does look like there's 47 of you, 46 that have made it here. Thanks to all of you there. It's great to see you. Great to see you, Fifi. Great to see you, Jason, Matthew Riot, Alien Bocaface, and Alien Girl. Really, really great to see all these familiar faces. And speaking of shows, there's another show that I highly recommend. Most of you are likely already familiar with it. Spaced Out Radio never fails to entertain. We have host Dave Scott here today. It's going to be fun. And speaking of spaced out things, although the Hubble telescope is beginning to show its age and we're without a shuttle to update it, the future of astronomy is still looking clear. The plan? Instead of rocketing telescopes into orbit, NASA intends to instead float telescopes up above the atmosphere with high-altitude balloons. The project is called the Super Pressure Balloon-Borne Imaging Telescope, or SuperBIT for short. These balloons will rise into the stratosphere, taking the most powerful telescopes with them, giving images to rival that of the Hubble and the future JWST. And while I'm excited for this new avenue of space photography, I'd be even more excited if they pointed those telescopes the other way, back here at Earth's atmosphere. These balloon-based telescopes seem to be a perfect low-cost option for monitoring our skies. Next time a mass sighting like the Phoenix Lights occur, we'll hopefully have a bird's eye view of the entire encounter. But until then, we'll ponder the evidence we have, and hopefully we'll have some fun while we do. To that end, let's get this show started. When he's not cosplaying as Lonnie Zamora or running a 70s telethon, he's here hosting the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Get those keyboards clacking for Luis Jimenez.
How's it going, Lou? Much rather. It's going very well, buddy. How you doing?
Doing well. Yeah.
It's
a long day, early morning, but I'm excited to be here.
I woke up at 5:30 this morning to do a podcast. So did Rather, since we're on the West Coast. So it's gonna be a full day for us, man. And we actually, me and Michael, and I don't know if I asked you, Rather, but me and Michael are gonna be going on Dave Scott's show. I believe it's September 2nd, if I'm not mistaken, September 2nd. And we're going to be doing Spaced Out Radio, which is super late for Michael. So that'll be fun.
Oh, yeah, the opposite.
And Dave does a 3-hour show. So, it's on, dude. But thank you, Alex Credit, for the $10 donation. This one is from my man, Rather. Thanks, brother. Love you all. Thank you,
Alex.
Donations help the show exist. Hello, good morning, good evening, good day, good afternoon, and aloha. Welcome back to another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for critical news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFO. My name is Luis Jimenez. That's Rather Be Squidding. Before we get started with today's show, I want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. I want to say thank you to Das Tapes. They provide all of the music that you hear on the show. Just in case you didn't know, their Bandcamp link is in the description below. Wow, look at that. I didn't write that. I just made that up. So real quick, of course, like, subscribe, share the channel. I see 73 of you guys in here. Let's see if we can get it up to 150. Let's double this bit. Gee. Thank you very much for that support. And if you can, check out our Patreon. We go from $1 to $500,000 a month. If you're feeling crazy, go for it. Check out the Patreon. It's the hottest thing in Patreon right now. But the beautiful thing about the show is that if you don't have the financial means to support it, don't worry about it. You still get the same show as everyone else. So enjoy it. The content is free, but to make the content, it's not. So if you can't support the show, we're a public access channel here 5 days a week for you. So let's get started with today's show. Are you excited, Ryan?
Yeah. No, I love Spaced Out Radio. I'm really excited to talk to Dave Scott.
Excellent. Well, our guest tonight or today, depending on where you're at in the world, it's the internet. Dave Scott is the creator and host of Canada's Spaced Out Radio, running Monday through Friday nights at spacedoutradio.com. A former radio journalist, Dave graduated with a diploma in broadcast communications from one of Canada's top broadcasting schools, BCIT, in 1998. Dave then spent 10 years in radio, mostly working in sports, before leaving the field to pursue other interests. And the other interests, well, we're going to get into them. Dave Scott, Spaced Out Radio. What's shaking, brother?
I feel underdressed, first and foremost.
Don't feel underdressed.
You know, I got to say, Lou, thank you so much for having me on. And you came on our roundtable here a little while ago, and you're such a great guy. Your energy is totally infectious. And the fact that you would bring me on to be a part of your show, man, I'm excited. I'm excited about the big phone home too, and the energy that you guys have brought to this subject. So really, the pleasure is all mine. But I just want to just apologize because it's a Canadian in me right off the bat. My son is upstairs, and he's going through some horrible growing pains in his legs. And the poor boy, he's 8 years old. He can barely walk right now. He's so sore. So if he comes down here and accidentally interrupts us because he's sore, I apologize. I'll quickly deal with him and get him more comfortable again. But he's set up.
Well, dude, yeah, totally. Don't sweat
Understood.
I've totally understood. I know what football practice is like. As a young man, those legs get pretty jelly. But yeah, well, hopefully he's okay.
Yeah.
If you have to take care of it, no problem, man. We're used to improvising around here, so it's all good. All right, so Dave, God, where do I want to start with Dave Scott? First of all, your voice I love it. It's so soothing. It's kind of like the Rod Stewart of ufology. It's just got this raspiness to it. It's a classic radio voice. You could tell that you're a broadcaster. You run a really tight ship. The openings of your show, I just always watch it go, man, I really would love to just be that tight in an opening. It's professional, and you can it oozes that, and that's what I dig about your show the most. And I've honestly been inspired by a lot of elements of your show, and that's what we've used to sort of guide how this show is sort of is produced. But with that said, I am interested in you say, well, you didn't say, but in your bio, it's you were a sportscaster. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into broadcasting? Obviously, you went to school for it. What sparked that interest, and then how did you go from the sports aspect of things to the woo, as you like to say? People were calling you the king of woo, by the way, in the chat here.
Well, it's kind of an interesting question because, originally I grew up in a town called Abbotsford, British Columbia, which was about an hour off of outside of Vancouver. And in Abbotsford, they have one of the largest air shows in North America. And when I was 3 years old, my dad took me to my first air show. And, this is going back to the days, before the F-15, the F-16, the F-18 were even created. And Canada had this jet fighter called the CF-101 Voodoo at that point. And they would open up the show every year, and they were so loud, and I fell in love with them. And from the time I was 3 years old until I was 18, all I wanted to do was fly jet fighters. And in Canada, after the first Gulf War in 1991, our illustrious prime minister at the time, Brian Mulroney, after the first Gulf War, hacked and slashed the defense budget by $16 billion and literally froze hiring and recruiting into the Canadian Armed Forces at that time. And it just devastated me because I didn't know what else I was going to do. I was so focused on becoming a fighter pilot. And from there, I kind of bummed around trying to figure out what I was going to do, and spent half of my 19-year-old age in the bar, because up here the drinking age is 19, and really had a bunch of odd jobs waiting for that moratorium to lift. And I remember I got this job at a warehouse, and 3 hours into this warehouse, I was unloading frozen boxes from Australia out of these carts or these crates. And I had 500 pounds of boxes land on the side of my leg, ripping my knee to shreds, tore my ACL, my MCL, and all the cartilage. And, got to go for surgery, which means there is no more military career. Right. So after about 12 months worth of recovery on that, because it is a slow, painful process, I was wondering, what am I going to do? And I got an offer to be a hockey instructor at a training facility. And, I took that did that for 3 years. I'm proud to say that I had 15 young kids that I trained go on to play professional hockey, including the NHL.
Wow.
But it wasn't paying the bills. And so here I was trying to figure out, I'm now 23 years old, trying to figure out what I'm going to do with my life. Do I join the Royal Canadian Mounted Police? How is my knee going to react? I was one of these homeboys that had never left home for anything, So the thought of going to RCMP depot in Saskatchewan for 6 months, 6 whole months, scared the daylights out of me. So I'm like, I don't really want to do that. And, I had always liked announcing. I had announced, been an announcer at hockey games, and, we're announcing penalties and goals and all that kind of stuff. And, you get a few people to say, hey, you got a real face for radio, so why not go into radio? So I applied for the British Columbia Institute of Technology, and I got in. And that's what started my radio career. I started my first couple of years I spent on Vancouver Island, a beautiful place, covering everything at a small little hick station where you kind of do everything. But my passion was always sports, and I wanted to get closer to the NHL. And I had a buddy of mine named Craig Nielsen who was working in Vancouver in sports at the time, and we were chatting on Facebook one day. And he's like, hey, man, there's an opening here. Do you want to come on in? And I'm like, sure. Oh, no, this is way before Facebook. Sorry, this is actually on the phone when we used to do that. Yeah. And I said, sure. So I sent in my tape, and I got the job. And for the next almost 7 years, I covered everything from NHL, the PGA, to the NBA before the Grizzlies left for Memphis. And that's still a sore spot for me. Yeah. I covered a lot of really cool events, and it was a lot of fun. And being in the wisp of things, I remember probably one of my favorite stories I love to tell from my radio days was there was a player on the Vancouver Canucks, and his name was Steve. I forget his last name right now. It'll come to me. But back when he played junior, his defensive partner was a kid that I trained for like 3 years. And so Steve McCarthy was his name. And so Steve and I kind of became close, and he was giving me little ins and outs, because the one thing that you want to do as a journalist is you want to try and get that inside information. What's really happening beyond the cliches of the microphone. And so it was trade deadline day 2007. And all of a sudden, we're in the war, what they call the media war room for the NHL underneath by the hockey rink and the players' dressing rooms and everything. And about 8 minutes after the deadline, it's announced that the Canucks had traded Steve McCarthy to the Atlanta Thrashers, who are now the Winnipeg Jets.
Right.
And I'm like, oh man, like this sucks. Like there goes my insider, right? Like, the one insider I had.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm swearing. So I leave the war room. I go outside and I call him up on his cell phone, and I woke him up. And because he was at his pregame nap.
He didn't know.
And I said, Steve, it's Dave. He's like, hey man, like all groggy. I said, so what do you think of the news? And he goes, what news?
Oh no.
I'm like, you haven't heard? And he goes, heard what? All of a sudden he perks up. He goes, heard what, Dave? I said, dude, you've been traded.
Oh no.
And he goes, oh, frig, in a different word. He goes, to who? I said, to Atlanta. He goes, for what? I said, future considerations. And he goes, let me call you back and I'll give you anything you want. He goes, I have to get a hold of my wife. And he goes, my wife just got in from Chicago and our stuff just arrived to our new place that we just bought a week and a half ago. He goes, I am pissed right now. He didn't hear from Canucks management for another 2 to 3 hours before the trade.
Wow.
And he was just steaming. I'll tell you, the goods I got off of him after that were beautiful. and I loved the job, man. Sitting on the floor during NHL draft day,
Yeah.
I know the Canadian Football League isn't big down south, but up here it's a big deal. And, hanging out, getting to know these football players and, watching covering the BC Lions win the Grey Cup, which would be the equivalent of your Super Bowl. I mean, a lot of good experiences in the career. But, the one thing about radio is we always called ourselves pseudo celebrities because everybody knew who we are, but we sure as hell weren't paid like celebrities.
Right.
And I worked for a guy who was just he was on his last legs in the business and getting ready for retirement. And he was just the most miserable son of a bitch I'd ever worked with. I mean, how can you be miserable? You work in sports.
Right.
Your entire job is to follow sports. How can you be miserable? And I never got that. And I knew my time was coming up, and a friend of mine had introduced me into financing, and a couple of my buddies who were in financing set me down and had a real long talk and, basically said, we know you love radio, you love what you do, but, you're a smart guy, you're 34 years old at this time, you're not getting ahead in life, you never have money. Because honestly, I didn't know. I mean, guys, take my month-end paycheck, after I paid my rent of $750, I had $120 to last me 2 weeks, and I haven't bought groceries yet or paid my cell phone bill.
Right.
And I work an hour out of town. How do I pay for my gas? Right?
Yeah. No. Hey, man, I've lived through those issues. That's for sure.
Yeah. So I knew the time was up. I knew the time was right, and I got out of radio. Never looked back. When I put away my microphone, I dropped a lot of opportunities. A friend of our family for a long time was the head scout of the Edmonton Oilers at that time. And I said, look, I'm really trying to make it or get a break into the NHL. I'd love to do some bird dog scouting for you. And he's like, call me. I never made the call because, I just, when I walked away, and that was it. And I had no intention of starting Spaced Out Radio. I had no intention of doing this for this long. Guys, and a lot of people, it's funny because, the bigger you get, the more criticism you take.
Yeah.
And I remember a few years ago, there was this one guy out there saying that I was copying everything that he did. I never heard of the guy. When I left radio, guys, I didn't even know what a podcast was. I found out about a podcast 6 weeks before I started Spaced Out Radio. So when I would hear my buddies on the radio, I'd tune into the local sports radio station, listen to my buddies on the air, and they'd be like, "Oh, check out this podcast." And I would be like, "What? Well, what's a podcast? Like, what is it?" I knew nothing. And so I started having in 2011 my own experiences. That's when shit started to get real for me and hit the fan, and with my own experiences. And it was a three long years of not knowing what was going on. And we could get into that in a little bit if you have questions, but
Yeah.
it all culminated in 2014 when I met a gentleman named Johnny Enoch. And he's like, I did some emceeing for a UFO conference that he had because a friend of mine, Samantha Mowat, was speaking at that conference. And so I did some emceeing for him. And a couple days after the conference, he called me up. He's like, "Dude, we got to get you back on the radio." And I'm like, "How?" He goes, "Well, let's start a show." I'm like, "Bud, you just can't start a radio show and go up to a radio station and say, 'Put me on the air, put my show on the air.'" I said, "That's not how it works." He goes, "No, man." He goes, "There's all this online radio, digital radio." I said, "What's that?" And he introduced me to Blog Talk Radio. And 6 weeks later, we started Spaced Out Radio, and we've been flying ever since. And you know, it's been a big learning curve. I made some really good moves. I've made some very poor moves, but you have to live and learn. And we're glad that we're still here. We're glad that we're a part of the community, and we're glad that you know, we get to do things like this on an afternoon and hang out and talk all this woo stuff, man. I mean, it doesn't get much better than this.
That's awesome, man. No, that's a killer story. I'd never, because I'm new to the Twitterverse, and when I say new, I've now been in it for a little over a year, and so I've found a whole bunch of new content that I'd never been exposed to before, and your show was one of them. So I never heard the Dave Scott story. You know, how did he get from? And man, I could understand. I've got a couple of buddies who are sports casters. You know, they've got their own things going. They used to be on a radio station, so they've got a little bit of a following. And, you know, since COVID, especially, sort of all that stuff kind of ended for them. And now they've started their own podcasts and their own, you know, YouTube content, and it's working, you know, like, because their content's good. Folks like to listen to them. And, you know, especially if you're looking for something specialized like sports, if you're looking for local sports specifically, I mean, that's just, it's a great medium to sort of work in. But rather, I've had the first couple of questions here. Did you have a question pop up for you?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm wondering about your experiences before Spaced Out Radio, and
Sure.
It's kind of essentially, did you feel like you needed to share these experiences, and that's why you did Spaced Out Radio, or was it more of a, I want to start a radio show and this is kind of a cool topic kind of thing?
The original premise of Spaced Out Radio was to try and figure out one answer: why me? And in the end, that is probably the most selfish question that I still haven't had answered. Why me? I mean, what a lot of people don't realize is when you put your experiences out in the open, you lose a lot. Okay.
Yeah.
I lost friends. Like my best friend of 28 years told me to F off because he didn't want to deal with this subject anymore. He didn't believe in it. I lost family who just, oh man, he's the weirdo, you know. You lose credibility. Other people have lost jobs because of it, and their financial backings and family and everything. Like, it's not a smart move for any of us to make, but we make it because we want to be true to ourselves and what we're experiencing. I mean, look, guys, I mean, you guys have taken it. I have taken it. There's a lot of people out there who will make false claims that I'm lying or other experiencers are lying and making up stuff for popularity and clicks and subscriptions to YouTube and followers on Twitter and everything. And it's highly unfair. It really is, because you know what? You've never stood in my shoes. You've never stood in any other experiencer's shoes. You can't sit there and tell me you're wrong. That didn't happen to you. Really? Were you there? Because when I was having that alien encounter in the forest with Samantha Mowat on April 15th, 2014, I sure as hell didn't see you there. You know, I mean, there's all this stuff that goes along, and in reality, you put yourself in the firing line of everything that is wrong with ufology and Bigfoot and ghosts and everything. So, I mean, it's a tough decision to make. I don't regret making that decision and going public. I am proud to say that I am one of the only real journalists out there that's an experiencer as well. And that's kind of what I fly by. And if other people don't like it, that's too bad. That's too bad. I don't care. I can't change who I am. I can't change my experiences and how it's affected me. But what I can do is try and ask questions. And that's all I can offer. I'm not a researcher. I'm an experiencer. I'm not a historian. I'm a journalist. Okay. So I know how to work on one of these because I've done it for so long. I know how to ask questions. So that's how I'm doing my little bit of a part in order to try and bring some of these answers to the forefront. Have I got anywhere? I would say at times we have, but I'm nowhere close to the answers that I want to be. And I don't think I'll ever be now.
Yeah. Lou, I think you're muted there.
Yeah, I said you had. Sorry, yeah, I was lowering my desk. You have a question?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of curious about the nature of your experiences. Were they, alien abduction type stuff, or did you see craft? I'm a little bit unfamiliar with your story.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear more.
Me as
All
well.
right,
Yeah,
so-
just for all the new folks here. And real quick, also just well, Jazz has a question, so we'll answer it after you answer this one. But I just wanted to just say, hey, Jazz, we see your question. I'll get right back to it.
All right. My experiences started on December 13th, 2011. And my partner was, she was going to a bunch of these woo-woo meditation classes. I didn't believe in any of that. Used to make fun of her regarding that. And on that date, we were having a early Christmas for my daughter because my daughter was going with her mom's parents on a Caribbean cruise over Christmas and New Year's. And I thought, you know what? She's leaving in a couple of days. I'll bring all my family over, and everybody from my side will have a Christmas where she can open up her gifts. We did a turkey dinner, did everything early for her. And, it was quite appreciative. At 7:45 that night, I remember the Canucks were on television. They were playing Columbus. And everybody's kind of gathered around the TV area, which is connected to my kitchen. And I'm trying to help clean up. And I walk through the doorway from the kitchen to go into my dining room and living room. And I'm picking up plates and drinking glasses and bringing them into the dishwasher. And my parents announced at 7:45 that they were getting ready to leave. And I was like, great. Like, we have all the family here, and you're going to be selfish because you got to get home to watch Dancing with the Stars, because everybody knows Dancing with the Stars is way more important than your granddaughter going away for the next 17 days over Christmas and New Year's. So I was a little pissed off.
Yeah.
And whatever, I'm cleaning up, and my mom walks into the kitchen, and I figure, well, I better go give my mom a hug. So I put the glasses and dishes on my table, my dining room table, and I go to enter the kitchen. And as I'm crossing the threshold of the kitchen or the dining room to the kitchen, I realize, because my mom is standing right there, in this instant, I realize there's no sound coming from the kitchen or the television area. There's no hockey game. Everything's silent. And I reach open my arms like this to give my mom a hug. And my mom has these beautiful blue eyes, and her eyes are jet black with white pupils staring back at me. And immediately on that second, I got sick to my stomach and wanted to cry, because I knew at that moment, and to this day, I don't know how, but I knew I was looking into the eyes of the angel of death. And all of a sudden, my mom I kind of tilted my head to the right, and my mom all of a sudden goes, almost like, oh, you see me. She then shook her head, her eyes turned blue, and all the sound is now going on in the background, from the hockey game and the television to everybody talking, all the cousins and kids talking away. and my mom comes in and hugs me like nothing happened. And I'm like almost in tears because I know what I just saw. And a couple hours later, my partner says to me, I explained to her what happened. And a couple hours later, when the kids were in bed, the house is empty. My partner says to me, with all her woo-woo crap, she goes, why don't you sit down on the couch? We go into the living room. She goes, I'll light a candle, a white candle, and let's see what comes out. Well, I did that because
Had you told her your experience at that point?
Pardon me?
Had you told her your experience at that point?
Yeah, I had. And she's like, well, let's try and figure this out. So I'm like, okay. So all of a sudden, I sit on the couch. I start doing these breathing stuff, this in through your nose and out through your mouth, in with the good, out with the bad. And next thing I know, I started channeling the angel of death. Now, in my opinion, this is a remote control. Channeling is flicking the channel as quickly as possible to find something that is on because you're bored as hell on a Sunday night at 12 o'clock and there's nothing but infomercials on TV. You know what I'm saying? So you're flicking around. And I didn't realize that the angel of death started speaking through me. And there was a recording of it, except when my partner's iPhone 3 blew up, the recording went along with it because there was no cloud at that point, right? And this is what I remember from it. My mother is a 2-time cancer survivor, and to this day, she has troubles with radiation. She has troubles with, the chemotherapy, and this is still 10 years past, but it beats the hell out of your body. Yeah. And my mom, we were getting real frustrated with my mom because, my mom would answer the phone and she'd be like, hello. And he'd be like, hey, Mom, how you doing? And she'd be like, oh, the pain. I'm so sore, the pain. And, in the meantime, you're having a bad day and you just want to talk to your mom. Yeah. And all you got is pain, right? And we as a family rudely started ignoring her. So the angel of death said through me, my mom is very sick. She's not BSing. She's very, very sick. And if you as a family do not start treating her with more love and more kindness and showing her more love, he says, I'm going to take her home. He didn't say heaven. He didn't say hell. He said, take her home. So I remember asking, how do I keep my mom alive? He goes, show her more love, show her more respect, call her. How hard is that? Call your mom.
Yeah.
And I listened. And I told my sisters about it. I told my grandmother about it. I didn't tell my dad because my dad was a real 5 senses kind of guy, an Alberta farm boy who just didn't believe in anything of the woo type. And I'm proud to say, man, like my mom, almost 10 years later from that incident, is still alive.
Do you call her more often?
My mom would have never met my son, and I think about that. I talk to my mom quite a bit now, right? And, I have a lot more love and admiration and respect for my mom than I did previously.
What about your siblings?
They do too. My one sister has kind of gone off the deep end since her only child passed away a couple of years ago. So she is kind of, I don't even want to be in her world right now.
Yeah, there's no need to even explain what someone like that's going through.
So that is kind of what got started. Within 2 days of that, all of a sudden my house becomes haunted. My kids start seeing ghosts in the house everywhere. You're sitting down watching television in the TV room and you can kind of see the stairwell and you'll see shadows all of a sudden walking down and up the stairs. And, and then I started getting these weird premonitions. And a friend of mine, she used to be a hostess at the Playboy Mansion. And she was dating a real popular rock star at the time, and they kind of broke up. And I said, don't worry, there's somebody else who's going to come along. And her and I go to this concert in Vancouver, and I see this dude who I've never seen before on stage. And I said to her point blank, I said, "That's your next boyfriend." And 11 months later in Vegas, they run into each other face to face and start hanging out. Like, coincidence? Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. All too coincidental when you're going through all of this stuff, this weird stuff. So it really started along the paranormal field. And then I met this gentleman named Pascal who really opened me up. And I remember him saying to me, "How far down the rabbit hole do you want to go?" And I'm like, "Let's just go. And let's do it. What the hell?" And after about 2 years of working with him and working on channeling and talking to spirits and everything like that, he started saying, well, first in 2013, he goes, "What do you want to see?" I said, "Well, I've seen a UFO," because I saw my first UFO when I was 21. I said, "I've seen a ghost now." I said, "I really want to see Sasquatch." And he goes, "Okay, well, let's put it out to the universe," and going through all this woo stuff. And the date was around end of July of 2013. Well, July comes along, nothing happens. Nothing. So I'm like, well, that didn't work. And all of a sudden, September comes along. My buddy, we're on his property where a lot of my experiences happened. He had like this mini ESETI ranch in Mission, British Columbia, a 10-acre parcel of land, and there was only 2 houses on his street. It was his 10 acres and his elderly neighbors who lived alone on this 6.5-acre property, and both properties were horseshoed by forests. So one day he says to me, he goes, "I want to show you something that weird that happened when I was a kid." So we go walking into the forest, and he was going to show me where this happened. And lo and behold, we come across this tree that's probably about that round, snapped at about 8 feet high. And me and my, extremely amateur knowledge of Sasquatch at that time says, Sasquatch has been known to snap trees. Like the bark was still wet on it. It was like it just happened. And we hadn't had any windstorms, any thunderstorms, nothing that would snap a healthy tree at 8 feet high. And then we got the feeling that we were being watched, and we're looking around, scouring around, because there are bears in the area, there are cougars in the area. And we ended up seeing this thing behind this fir tree in the shadows and the canopy of the tree. And it was peering at us from behind the tree, and it was kind of peering out and then in and then out. And then you would just see the shoulder, and then it would keep its head out. And like, dude, that's a Sasquatch staring at us. It's only 100 feet away. And as we started to leave, I saw this tree branch shaking even closer at about 75 feet from us. And that's where I saw the second one walk right through where that branch was shaking. And I got a full right side and back waist up profile. It had no neck, man. This thing was massive, absolutely massive. We got the hell out of there quickly. And so then my buddy Pascal, and I know I'm speeding things up here for you guys.
No, that's all good.
My buddy Pascal kept on saying to me after that happened, he's like, my guides keep telling me that you need to start focusing on the ETs. And Pascal has a French accent. So if you can just imagine that French Canadian accent coming at you, and I'd be like, "No, man, I saw fire in the sky. I never finished the book Communion. Okay. Yeah. Not dealing with them aliens. Don't want any aliens." He goes, "Well, what if you don't have a choice?" I said, "Well, what about my free will?" And we started arguing about this all the time. And he kept pressuring me and pressuring me and pressuring me. And then in March of 2014, I don't know whether I had a dream or I was taken. I to this day, I don't know. All I know is that I was in a bright white room. And I knew there was a floor because I was standing on it. I knew there was walls, even though I couldn't see them. And this male voice comes out, and you got to realize, leading up to that point, everything that had happened the last couple of years, I literally had been staying up till 2, 3, 4 o'clock, sometimes 5 o'clock in the morning with my laptop on on my lap trying to find out anything that we had seen or experienced. I mean, at that point, I'd seen a number of UFOs, including a black triangle over my house and orbs, doing really weird stuff at low altitude, and it got to the point, guys, where I would call friends over and I would say, hey, why don't you come hang out, have a beer with us on the patio tonight, and we'll watch some UFOs fly by. Literally, I could call it. And I don't know how to this day. And it still bugs me.
And those people would come over and see it as well?
We had friends come over and we'd watch, it happened with the black triangle. It happened with this weird orb. And it wouldn't happen all the time, but you just have this feeling like tonight's the night, right? And you go with it. And so this kept happening. I'd seen UFOs, but then in this white room, this voice said, we don't want you researching anymore. We don't want you watching television shows. We don't want you reading books. Stay off the forum. Don't go on any paranormal investigations. And then it got really, really weird. And I to this day, it makes no sense to me. The voice said, however, you can watch YouTube videos. And I said, why are you taking everything away, but you'll allow me to watch YouTube videos? I said, this doesn't make sense. The voice then said, it is simple. You'll be able to tell what is real and what is fake. So none of this makes sense to me. Then on April 10th, 2014, my partner was over at our friend's house on this Midi-East ranch having tea. And I got off work at like 8 o'clock. And I said, yeah, I'll meet you over there. I probably won't be there till about 9. And they're like, that's fine. So I worked out of town. It was about a 45-minute drive from my work. And I start driving to their place. I get about halfway and I start getting this brutal migraine. So I finally pull up into the driveway. My head is like thump, 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 just killing me. And I walk in and I sit on the couch and I close my eyes and put my head back. My partner says, are you okay? I said, no, I'm getting a migraine right now, really bad. She goes, well, do you want to go? I said, no, I just got here. I said, let's hang out for a little bit. Maybe it'll go away. Just let me sit here with my eyes closed. And, about half an hour later, I realized that the pain had changed. It started off as a square in the front of my head, moved to the right side of my head as a triangle, and then moved to the left side of my head as a circle. And as soon as the pain subsided, I got hit with an anxiety attack that I needed to go outside ASAP into the back field of this farm. And my partner says, can I go? I said, no, you have to sit here with our son. The lady of the house says to her hubby, Dave's picking something up. We got to go outside right now. And she was quite intuitive. And I looked at her point blank and I said, he can't come. He's not invited. Why would I tell someone that they're not invited on their own property? It didn't make sense. So her and I get our shoes on, taking the voice or whatever it was, the message. We go outside. We walk behind the house. There's an old horse fence about 50 feet behind the house. And they live on top of a mountain. And it's one of those real dreary, misty nights where the clouds are only 300 feet. And it's not raining, but everything is damp, typical West Coast spring day or night. And she goes, you can cut this energy with a knife right now. I'm like, yeah. She goes, there's something here. So I said, she goes, well, they called you outside, say something. Oh, well, what the hell do I say? Right. And so the first thing that comes to my mind is literally this. I said, you called us outside out of God's peace, love, and light. Can you please show me where you are? And from the neighbor's back field, there's a tree line in between the two properties. And then the neighbor's back field by their barn, as soon as I said, can you show us where you are? It was like this light switch went on the ground, and everything emanated the brightest white light I've ever seen from the ground. And here I am looking at this thing, and I'm like, what the hell is this? So before I'm thinking UFO, I'm thinking, okay, could they hear me? Could they hear me make that call? And I'm thinking, okay, Well, I'm talking in the same volume as I am to you guys right now. This is 150 yards away. The chances of them hearing me are slim to none. Then I started thinking, okay, well, let's listen for any sound. There's no sound coming around, but I see some movement. Okay, is that people? Is that not? And then I remember thinking, okay, well, Canadian Tire sells those 100,000 candle watt flashlights. Maybe they heard me and someone's playing a trick on me or whatever. Anyways, the light goes off and we're blown away. This after about 30, 40 seconds, the light turns off. And the lady says to me, she goes, do it again. See what's going on. I said, okay. So I muster up the courage and I'm like, if you are of alien descent, out of God's peace, love, and light, can you please turn your lights back on? Boom. Lights come back on again. This time the white light is brighter and wider through the trees. It's emanating more around us. Now I'm literally shitting bricks at this point, right? Because this is not supposed to happen. This is way too real for me. And I'm just trying to take it all in. And I'm trying to get a better view, but I got a bunch of bushes on my right. I've got the line of maple trees. They're about 60, 70 feet tall in between the properties. I'm trying to figure out if I could see more. So I move to my right about 15 feet and I get this view of where the light's coming from. And that's where I see this blue cylinder standing vertically. And I've only ever seen that blue once. And if you guys remember a few months ago, there was that UFO in Hawaii that was blue, that was in the sky and then went smash into the water. That's the only other time I've ever seen that same blue was in that video. So I see this blue cylinder, and then there's this black cloud rotating counterclockwise. It went up about halfway, and then it made its way down, and then went back up halfway and made its way down. And the white light seems to be emanating not from the blue cylinder, but all around it. Then the lights go off. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me right now. So now the lady wants to walk over there. And I look at her and I'm like, you ain't going anywhere. We don't know what the hell this is. And if that is a UFO, they could take us. She goes, I don't care. I said, I do, because I'm suspect number one. If I got to walk into that house alone, how does anybody believe me? Right? I am literally starting to freak out here. So anyways, she's like, okay, I'll stay here. She goes, well, ask it again to see if it'll turn its lights on. So I say to whatever it is, I said, just so I know I'm not crazy, out of God's peace, love, and light, can you turn your lights on one final time? Bang, the lights come on. There's the blue cylinder. There's the black cloud rotating counterclockwise. Everything is just kind of going that way. And then at the end, it started turning its lights on and off, on and off, on and off, like a light switch. And after about the 10th time, it went dark for good. But I think now what was happening was, we used to go out on our patio at night before I got into all of this. We'd go have a glass of wine and go count satellites. But then all of a sudden, after a bunch of time, we started noticing that these, what I like to call power-ups in the sky, where all of a sudden, the satellite gets really bright. And it kept on happening over top of our house. And now looking at it, my feeling of it, I could be wrong, but my feeling of it was, I always called it satellites, because the sun hits the metal. The satellites don't have lights on them, right, first and foremost. But when the sun hits it, that's what causes the flare up.
Right.
And that's what I always thought it was. But after having that experience where it was turning its lights on and off, I now wonder whether or not it was actually turning or showing us that, no, it wasn't satellites. That was us letting you know that we were there. So basically, I didn't sleep for 5 days. And on the 4th day, my partner takes a call from the lady of the house and says, hey, I've met this new lady named Samantha. I really want you guys to meet her, and I want to tell her our story from the forest the other night, and she's a lifelong ET contactee. Okay. So I just happen to have that Wednesday off. We go back to the farm. It's like 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And here's this little redheaded pixie named Samantha Mowat. And we meet her, and the three girls start having tea. And my little guy is sleeping because he's only 10 months old at the time. And I'm kind of pacing around. I don't even want to be there. I'm going to go back in the back field because I'm, in my heavily researched attitude, I want to go see where this craft was, try and, figure things out in my head. And Samantha sees me pacing around and she goes, "You want to go outside, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." We'd already told her the story. And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "You mind if I come with you?" "Sure." So we go in the back field, and I always used to bring my two dogs over there to play with the farm's two dogs. So there were 4 dogs running around with us, and we're standing in the field, and I'm showing her where the craft was. And we start off where I was standing. And then we walk to the back field to the equivalent in the neighbor's yard where this alleged craft was. And she's picking up on the energy of this UFO. And it felt like something had been left there for us, but we never found anything. And then out of the blue, little Samantha says, "Hey, Dave, you want to go in the forest?" And I just knew. I knew. And I said, "Yeah, what the hell?" She goes, "We're probably going to see something, right?" I went, "Yep, I know." I said, "What the hell? I just saw a UFO here 5 days ago on the ground. Why not?" And then she makes this weird comment. She goes, "I don't know if we'll actually see anything because from what I know, ETs don't like dogs. And the dogs are probably going to follow us into the forest." So we tried to take all 4 dogs back to the house without success. We start walking towards there. All 4 dogs come running. So we were like, let's just try it. So we walk down this little knoll to the back gate where the farmyard meets the forest. And all 4 dogs run ahead of us. They're at the gate waiting for us. We get about 20 feet from the gate. All 4 dogs run into the forest. And there, we walk in and we could see the dogs running around. We get about 50 yards in, and Samantha all of a sudden has this real strange look on her face. And she stops me and she goes, "Dave," and she's looking around. I'm like, "Yeah." She goes, "Where's the dogs?" And I start looking around, and all 4 dogs are gone. Don't know where they are. So, just like a horror movie where the stupid white people keep going, we kept going. We keep going into the forest. And we walk another 50 yards, and I don't remember what we talked about in between then. And we come to this stump, and Samantha steps up on this stump, and I'm to the left of her, and she's looking all around, and I'm about 18 inches from her, and she goes, "Dave, I don't want you to be afraid." And she points, and she goes, "I want you to look that way," pointing north. She goes, "I want you to tell me what you see." So all of a sudden, I'm just bone stiff. And I take a deep breath. I turn, I look. And for the next couple of minutes, all I could say was, "Samantha, what the F is that? Samantha, what the F is that? What the F is that, Samantha? Samantha, what the F is that?" Because 200 feet in front of us, this is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, not a cloud in the sky. There is a 10 to 12 foot extraterrestrial standing there in the forest staring back at us. And to this day, I always say I wasn't scared of the creature. I was scared of the fact that everything that I had been taught up until that day was garbage. I wasn't brought up in a religious house, but I was brought up with a strong belief in God, and that, there's a God, there's a devil, there's a heaven, there's a hell. If you're good, you go up. If you're bad, you go down. But nobody, from my parents, my grandparents, to my friends, teachers, mentors, coaches, ever told you, what the hell do you do when you're 40 years old and you're standing in a forest staring at an extraterrestrial that's double your height? And I'm staring at this guy and I can't move. I can't move. Samantha, I didn't see. In that point, there was a second alien there. I didn't see it. Samantha did. She starts telepathically communicating with that alien, and she goes, Dave, they've invited us over. They said we're more than welcome to come over and say hello. They're not here to harm us. They're not here to take us. However, they are very concerned about the man's health. Well, I know Samantha's not a man. I know there's no other man there but me, so they're talking about me. And this screwed me up because I saw what happened in Fire in the Sky, and Travis Walton, at that point, still thought it was a true story, the movie. And it confused me. And I'm like, no, we're going to stay here. She goes, come on, let's go. They're not going to take us. And I said, no, I'm going to stay here, and I wish you would stay here too. And she goes, well, I'm going to go. And she starts walking down the path towards him. And I begged her, I literally, Samantha, please stop. Do not leave me here. Okay. Like, I'm not going back to that house where I am suspect number one. If you get taken. So we don't know what they are. Please stay with me. And I guess she heard the panic in my voice. And she stayed with me. And we just stood there in amazement. I'm still staring at this guy, and for about another 10, 15 minutes. And then both of us started getting the feeling that there was more extraterrestrial activity down another path to the south of us. So we decided that we were going to take that path. So we leave these two guys, go down the other path, and we stay there for 10 minutes, and there was nothing there. We go back to the original spot. They are gone. So we walked back to the house saying, oh, that was kind of cool. But as we got to the entrance to the farm, all 4 dogs ran out to meet us. And that was pretty cool.
Wow.
Yeah, wow.
Well, Dave Scott, they said you bring the woo, and sir, you did not disappoint. Those were some absolutely wild tales, and I kind of want to touch on a couple of them.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because they're interesting. But before we do that, just want to catch up everybody to the show. What we're talking about. So we've got Dave Scott, who's the creator of and host of Canada's Spaced Out Radio, running Monday through Friday nights at spacedoutradio.com. He's a former radio journalist. Dave is also a graduate with a diploma in broadcast communications from one of Canada's top broadcasting schools, BCIT, in 1998. And then he spent nearly 10 years in radio, mostly working in sports, before leaving the field to pursue other interests. You guys, if you haven't already, like, share, subscribe. We're talking to Dave Scott here. This is a fascinating discussion so far. Let me ask you this, Dave, because I think he told us 3 stories here. We've got your first experience with the Angel of Death. Then we've got a couple of UFO tales in there, and then the Bigfoot, and then the alien entities in the forest. And that's after you saw a craft that looked like a blue cylinder. These are a lot of experiences. Do they still happen? Are you still getting this kind of activity? And why do you think that is?
$1 million question. I really have no idea. It's one of those things that I'm trying to figure out. And the only thing that I can figure out is, after those experiences, we started Spaced Out Radio in November of 2014. And
was that your first episode? Did you talk about it on your first episode?
No.
Okay.
No, I tried to keep my experiences away from it because I didn't want the show to be about me.
Right.
Because, there's a lot, and in learning, I'm glad that it went that way.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. And the show isn't about me.
Right.
It's about trying to find answers to any of the questions that not only me, but other people have as well. So that's kind of where the focus of the show goes. That's where you kind of put that journalism / entertainer hat on and then try to realize that you have a different job to do. And, like I work a full-time daytime job as well.
Right.
And so I think what's happened is I don't have enough time to meditate. I don't have enough time to communicate. There's always something going on with SOR that you have to deal with, whether it's, the background stuff,
yeah, trust me, I know that. I know that game. Yeah,
yeah.
If anybody knows,
well.
yeah, there's a lot of stuff that people don't see behind the scenes of shows like this, especially when you do it daily. The communications back and forth, and then on top of that, balancing your real life issues. Like your kid's got, some growing pains in the legs. My lady's got some, cracked vertebrae in her back. So, like, yeah, I totally understand that. I want to keep touching on these stories real quick, but I don't want to ignore this question. I know I hope his head hasn't exploded that we haven't asked it yet. But Jashaw had a $25 super chat. Thank you, sir, for the donation. Truly appreciate it. He says, "Hey, Dave, Charlie Red Star, case closed or still open? Mundane experience or possibly exotic? One of my favorite Canadian cases." Can you sort of fill us in quickly? I've never heard of Charlie Red Star. That's the first time I've heard of this case. Can you fill us in quickly and then maybe answer his question?
The first time I ever heard about Charlie Red Star was through Grant Cameron, because this was the incident that turned Grant Cameron on as a teenager to UFOs. And this happened in Carmen, Manitoba, at I believe 1971 or somewhere around there. And Charlie Red Star was this big orb of red light that just kind of hung in the sky really low to the ground. And literally hundreds of people from RCMP to civilians saw this thing, and then it shot out of the sky. And Grant Cameron was actually one of the people who saw this craft or whatever it was and was an eyewitness to it, and it completely changed his life. And that's why he's one of the top dogs in UFOs ever since, because when you have a personal experience like that, it's really it can affect you to push you into that direction. So with Charlie Red Star, I don't know if I think it's a case closed, but it's one that'll never end for Grant, because that's kind of the beginning. And I think deep down in the end, when his career finishes, I think he wants to try and tie it all together. Yeah. But in retrospect, it's probably a dead case.
Okay. I guess, what were you going to ask, rather?
Well, yeah, I'd love to get back to your experiences if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
Rich, mentions that it's the trifecta that you've pretty much experienced. You got the ET, ghosts, and Sasquatch, right? I guess my question is, do you think that these things are all related, or do you think that they're different types of phenomenon that you've been lucky enough or unlucky enough to experience?
You know what? That's a good question, because I think if you look at the people who are doing all the boots on the ground hard work, not looking for that publicity outside of maybe a couple, but I think of names like Timothy Renner, David Weatherly, Joshua Cutchin, Michael Huntington is another one who is like that, and many other of the brilliant minds who really have opened the doors to this study. I think that they all are looking for this invisible thread that ties everything together, the paranormal to the supernatural, to the cryptid world and the UFO world. Somehow I do believe it is all connected because of my own experiences to kind of run the gamut through everything. It just, to me, makes sense. Too many times I think researchers out there are stuck on one facet of the game. And like I always like to explain, when you open up that first door, there's 10 doors behind it. And behind each of those 10 doors, there's another 10 doors. And this is where I kind of argue with a lot of people who say, Grant Cameron is going off the deep end with all of his research. And I'm sitting here saying, how do you figure? Grant's the type of guy where he will literally open one of those doors and he takes that path as far as it can go until he's either done, feels he's done, or hits a dead end,
or finds
and
another
then
door.
He comes back and he opens up another door and goes down that road. And I think too many times, whether it's in Sasquatch research or even ufology, where we want to believe one thing, and what I have learned through watching a lot of people in this field, we're not conducting a lot of science. we're conducting a lot of opinion. And that's dangerous when we are conducting opinion. And especially in the Bigfoot world, you have people who will literally say, we're looking for Gigantopithecus, or there's a guy in Vancouver who says he's going out to find a big North American monkey, calls it the monkey. Well, if you listen to First Nations, they talk about this creature potentially being a shapeshifter, potentially being a wild man, potentially being interdimensional of some sort. We don't know. Excuse me. We don't know. And we have to stop closing doors before we've opened them. Our opinions in this field, whether it's aliens, UFOs, consciousness, psychic energy, whatever it may be, means nothing because we haven't fully investigated it. We need to take that investigation and have open minds and open arms to any possibility. There's no experts in this field. All right. Even the top researchers will tell you there are no experts. Nobody knows what's going on. All we have is conjecture, opinion, and eyewitness testimony, which, of course, you're either going to believe or not believe.
Yeah.
And the fact that there are people out there who are eliminating potential scientific fact, or, because they don't want to investigate it because it's too woo. Like, for instance, the BFRO, the Bigfoot Research Organization, did you know that they will absolutely edit or refuse to run one of their many reports if it has anything to do with UFOs, ghosts, or Bigfoot disappearing, or anything of the woo? They will not put it out because that goes against their mantra of scientific theory. Well, if you're eliminating something that happens, you're not conducting anything scientific.
Yeah, doctoring evidence isn't very scientific.
No, definitely not.
Exactly. And this is what's happening in this field, guys. It's happening in the cryptid world, happening in the paranormal world. It's happening in the UFO world, where we see narratives left, right, and center, but nobody wants to question the narrative because we don't want to piss off Lou Elizondo or Chris Mellon or the government or Grant Cameron or Richard Dolan or anybody.
Yeah.
Why not? Questions shouldn't piss people off.
Yeah.
Questions need to be asked. And if we're not going to answer those questions and we're going to follow the narratives that are being laid out for us, how far ahead are we?
No, that's a good point. Well, we'll get to some questions for you here in a second, Dave.
Sure.
So let's just real quickly, everybody out there, we've hit the top of the hour. Just want to remind you who's here, Mr. Dave Scott from Space Out Radio. Of course, we've got Rather Be Squidding, and then we've got a little commercial for you guys. So please enjoy.
I'm going to tell you all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.
All right, you guys, appreciate it. Don't forget to support the Patreon, and of course, check out our website, www.thebigphonehome. No, there's no www. Just thebigphonehome.com. Don't put in the www. Totally takes you to a whole nother place. Just thebigphonehome.com. If you haven't signed our petition yet, ask Congress for more transparency, more truth, congressional public hearings. We have a petition. We're almost up to 500 signatures on the petition, so go check it out. It's at the website, and it's super, super easy to fill out. And you've done your UAP activism for the day. And then if you want to get even more active, there are other ways that you can check out on the website as well. And we might talk about those a little bit later. Dave, I know you've got growing pains going on in the house. Are you still good with?
We're still good to go, guys.
Okay, awesome.
We're still good to go. I told my boy that I'd be a couple of hours with you.
No worries. Okay, great. Okay, so we had a $5 super, or this is a euro, excuse me, from Max Mustardman. Has Dave ever talked to other experiencers / mediums about that? All of that channeling sounds like what mediums experience.
Yes, I have. And the main one who I've communicated with this is my good friend Samantha Mowat. And when I have something deep, excuse me, that I don't understand, I go to Samantha with everything, because she just, she's like, even though I'm old enough to be her older brother, she is just a real mentor and a hero of mine. With her intuition, I can ask her anything. I can ask her everything that's going on and what I'm experiencing, and I can get really the level answers. I mean, when you're in a position of mind where people kind of look at you and they, I mean, when we do shows like this, even you, Lou, or you take Jimmy Church or whoever, there's an audience that kind of puts you on this invisible pedestal a little bit. And there's the people out there who are going to walk on your every word, and then there's going to be the people who try and knock you down. And that's why I try and keep my inner circle with my experiences pretty tight, because I want to be able to trust those people. I know that they're not going to give me a bunch of just gravy to put on the mashed potatoes, so to speak.
Right.
And so when I talk to people about my channeling, it's really two people. It is Samantha Mowat, and then my friend and my guru, Pascal Lachance. And they are the two who I really go to if I'm having any troubles or I don't understand anything. I haven't channeled in a while. I really haven't. It's probably been 3 years, and it's not really what I want to do. It's kind of weird when it happens, to be honest. And I mean, could I do it? Probably still. But I mean, you got to have the right people around you, because when you let a spirit come into your body, you want to make sure that spirit leaves as well. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so you got to do it with somebody who you can trust.
Well, okay. I had a question for you. And I hope it's not too personal or doesn't, I don't want it to come off as rude, right? So
Sure.
you've had a lot of experiences. It's been very rich in sort of the different, like rather, or someone in the chat said, almost like a trifecta. You've had it all. We always try on this show to bring it back to this baseline of reality, at least when it comes to the UFO thing, like what can I put on a senator's desk? What can I put in front of a congressman? What is, like you said, what is scientific? What is tangible? What can be measured? And I'm curious to know, is that insulting to you when I say that? Like, is that something that hits your ears the wrong way? Because I'm always curious from an experience standpoint. I never want to write off anybody's experience, because I've had one as well. It's nowhere near as visceral as yours, nowhere near as close encounter. It was close, but it wasn't, I didn't see any beings or anything like that. But it would be insanely naive of me to just throw it out, because it's like you said, once you open the door on this, especially if you've had the experience, it's really hard not to try and open other doors and see where other things go. So, is there any way for you to separate your experience sort of from the science of it? How do you do that?
It's tough. I mean, it's the same thing as, there's a time to be journalist and there's a time to be experiencer. There's a time to be a pro and there's time to be not. Look, every time we hear an experiencer, whether it's someone who we believe, whether it's yourself or anybody, it's only anecdotal evidence to kind of add to the story. Look, in reading your chat room, there's people there who don't believe me worth squat, and that's fine. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me, because it's not going to change what happened to me. I'm not doing this for ratings, guys. It's one of those things where the easy answer is, well, somebody is doing this to obviously get ratings and get popularity. Really? Have you seen my paycheck from Spaced Out Radio? Because for 6 years, it's been zero. All right. And I have a business partner that, we're trying to build a business around it. And, everything that we get goes straight to him. I get zero. So, I mean, the fact that we put ourselves on the firing line because of anecdotal evidence is something that we choose to do. I mean, is my case going to solve what a tic tac is? Not at all. Not at all. But I can tell you, in sharing that story with someone who has been on your show before and who may or may not have worked at the Pentagon in an ATIP program, he's seen what I've seen.
Yeah.
If he's telling me the truth, he's seen what I have seen. All right. Because he asked me point blank, he goes, did that rod change color? And I said, no, it didn't. It stayed blue. I said, why? What colors do they change? He goes, well, we've heard them of changing from blue to red to orange and then back to blue and to white and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
Well, how's that? How does he know what I saw? Right.
Yeah.
So I think we haven't graduated yet in the whole discussion, Lou, to what is up with the experiencers. This is why when the TTSA came out, they didn't mention aliens or extraterrestrials.
Right.
This is why in all of the discussions that we've seen coming out of the Pentagon and out of Washington, D.C., there's been nothing about extraterrestrials. I mean, let's face it. How many times do we have to hear Lou Elizondo say these aren't, or David Fravor, these aren't of human descent? We have no human technology in these craft that we are witnessing.
Right.
Well, if it's not human technology, where the hell is it coming from and who's piloting it? Whether it's a little being inside or whether it's a being controlling some sort of alien drone. So eventually we are going to get to that experiencer level of the movement.
Yeah.
Now, do I believe every story that comes along? No, there's a lot that are hard to swallow. I admit that.
Let me ask you this. Do you think your stories are hard to swallow?
For a lot of people, yeah. Because a lot of people can't understand how come he saw everything? How come he went through, he's seen ghosts. He has seen haunted houses. He has seen this or that or UFOs or had alien encounters. Why does it always happen to him? If I knew, right, I would like to know the answer. I would like to know about what is going on. I would like to know, on April 20th, 2015, when I turned out the window, when I saw something moving out my window and I turn and look and there's a big gray head with big black eyes staring at me, I would like to know what the hell Carl is doing, because I nicknamed him Carl. I mean, what else do you call him, right? I would like to know what is happening. I'm just as curious. That's why I do a show. In the end, like I said earlier, I do the show selfishly because I do want to know what it is or what is going on. I want to know what's happening to me. I didn't ask for this, but the only thing that I have to offer to the community outside of my testimony is the fact that I know how one of these works. I know how radio works. And after taking a broadcast journalism course, I know how to ask questions. And that's what we do.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Kind of when I hear stories like this, first of all, you sound very credible. I don't think that you're lying at all. I think that you're telling the honest truth. But, kind of what goes into my mind when I try to, explain stories like this is it possible that this is all potentially conscious modification and that these maybe didn't, if there was a third party observer looking at your mom, maybe they wouldn't have seen the eyes change, but there was some sort of, manifestation in your head?
Could be. Could very well be. I don't know. I mean, it's the same thing, rather, where you see people in a group who have had experiences with UFOs where some of them didn't even see it, or they saw something completely different. I think the phenomena affects everyone differently, and the phenomena lets you see what it wants you to see. Right. And that is so mind melding for a lot of us. Right.
Yeah.
That's one of those mysteries that we don't know. I mean, it's just like if you talk deep down with some of these people who are in the know, they'll tell you point blank. They don't know if this is coming from space, if it's coming from inner Earth, if it's coming from the future, from the past, from the oceans, or whether it's coming from a different dimension. They can't answer that. And they will even tell you point blank that they don't even know where to start for an answer with that, allegedly. Right?
Do you have any theories of your own? Do you lean any way?
I still think they're coming from space. All right. And the reason why I think that is because, I'm not a scientist. If I were to, go down any path, and this may be, unlikable for some people, but I would consider myself a creationist. And I'm a God guy. I don't go to church. I don't profess one certain religion. It's just what I believe, and it's what makes sense to me. And I think about it that if God is the Alpha, the Omega, and creator of all, we got to be pretty damn naive to think that in an infinite universe that we're the only creation of life. That sounds pretty stupid to me. And we don't know if he created other life forms before us, right? So it opens up a bunch of questions. It's all part of that Pandora's UFO box.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, Dave. Obviously these experiences were they traumatic? Did they mentally exhaust you? I mean, you had mentioned something along the lines of like you were up for 5 days after one of these experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So how is that mentally how are you able to mentally deal with that? I guess because what you explained is crazy, like the thing that I tell people.
We haven't even got into the ET abduction yet.
Oh, well, let's get there here in the last 40 half hour, 40 minutes. But
right.
Like I always tell folks, like, look, it's especially with the experiencers, like it's hard for you as an experiencer, at least from what I can imagine, it was for me, when I saw my craft, it's hard to explain to people. It's hard for me to get my noodle around that experience, to get my vocabulary in the proper setting to explain what happened. Like it's really, really difficult to explain with words what you saw. And then when you start replaying it in your mind, it really does. I cannot imagine what it's done to you mentally, how exhausting that must be.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe there's elements of PTSD in this as well. So my question to you is, am I right on that? Have you experienced sort of that mental stress?
I wouldn't call it PTSD.
Okay.
I would call it that as a journalist, my mind, the way my mind works is when I have an experience, I immediately get hit with 1,000 questions, even though I know that 999 of those questions are not going to be answered, if not all 1,000 of those. And that's the tough pill to swallow.
Right.
And that's why it all comes down to one question. Why me? Why did this happen to me? Why? I didn't want this to happen. Guys, I lived a happily boring life before this happened. Okay. I went to Vegas twice a year to play poker. I had my ATV that I would go riding out in the forest to find new fishing spots or just to goof around. My family was perfect, vacations going on. I worked my ass off at my daytime job to provide for my family, where I made a very good, healthy income. And I wanted to be able to just enjoy life. My next goal after my ATVs was to be buying a travel trailer so that way we could go camping a little bit more. And that was my goal. Like I said, I didn't care about the hockey game on TV anymore because I saw 500 games. All right. I didn't care about what was going on. I cared about hanging out with my friends and just enjoying life, because I always wanted one of those houses where there's always beer in the fridge and coffee on in case somebody wanted one or the other.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden this happened. No experiencer asks for this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's what we have to get through our heads. No experiencer asks for this, number one. And the majority of those experiencers wish it never happened, whether it was positive or negative, because what comes next is if you actually take a dip into the experiential realm, you will look that it's a sad place, guys. People have lost jobs. They've lost their families. They've lost their reputation, their credibility. They've lost their finances. For some reason, many people who start to psychically connect end up losing a lot of their income. Like when I started going in, my income changed. The more I delved into this, the more my personal income, this is outside of Spaced Out Radio. This is how I live, how I pay my mortgage. My income dropped, and not by, $500 or $1,000. I'm saying by about $25,000, $30,000. Okay. Like this seems to affect everything. that you are going through, but you fight through it because this is what you feel you need to do in your search for answers into what's going on. And that goes along with, the financial aspect, the stress along that all, how do you meet friends? You end up becoming quite introverted like I did. Okay. I realize I have this radio show. I talk to people every day. You guys don't see me when I walk out of my house and I have to go into town.
Yeah.
I haven't driven to see my family or down on the coast. I've seen them once since COVID, or twice since my parents twice since COVID. Why? I don't want to drive down there. It's too long. I like my little hermit place where I am. It feels safe. And you end up building this safety net around you that you try and keep very, very locked down, because you're tired of the ridicule. You're tired of the accusations or whatever.
Is there a line for you then? I mean, it feels like a little bit like the subject is kind of killing you. like at what point do you go, you know what, this just isn't worth it anymore? Like, I don't have to do this to myself. Especially if it's affecting you financially at a $30,000 per year. That's a lot of money.
No, I've been able to get back.
Okay, got it.
Back to where I am. I'm saying that this actually, like, if you take a deep look, if you were to build a not a test, but a report of people who've had experiences, you will see similarities in what they've experienced, from loss of friends, loss of family, loss of jobs, loss of income, and everything that is going on that affects you. But you keep going because like for me, I keep going, and that's actually a good question, Lou. I keep going for a couple of reasons. Number one, I'm very open to the fact that I suffer from depression and anxiety. I am diagnosed. And the show allows me to end every night on a high, most nights on a high. I would say 99 nights out of 100, I end on a high. There's always that one show that you're just, somebody in the chat room or somebody just makes that one comment that just sends you down. Yeah. So for me, I have replaced, I've been medication free on my depression and anxiety since January 2014. Wow. But the show has helped me get that adrenaline rush, that positivity.
It's therapy.
It is therapy.
Yeah.
Let
me ask you this. Do you still see a therapist? Do you still go to sessions?
No, I haven't gone to any sessions since 2017. But I mean, you have to find somebody who you can talk to about this. It's right. There's outside of the show, there's everyday life, whether it's family, whether it's marital troubles, whether it's financial troubles, there's all of this that kind of goes along with it. So, I know when I'm at that point where I need to talk to someone, and I'm lucky and blessed that I have a nice unit around me where if I am struggling, I can go to those people. And a lot of people who suffer from depression and anxiety don't have that. Right. And that is a circle that I felt I needed to build for my own strength. Yeah. And I encourage anybody who suffers from depression and anxiety, especially men, because we're not supposed to talk about this being weak stuff, to actually build a circle of trust around you, because it does work. But in regards to the phenomena, you asked, what would get me to stop? Yeah. If I actually had government officials rolling up on my doorway and blacked out SUVs with helicopters floating around hovering around my house, that might. If I got paid to quit, if somebody came up to me and said, if some government agency came up to me and said, we'll give you $500,000 to shut things down right now and never talk about UFOs again. Yeah. I'd probably go. That pays off my mortgage.
Well, if you ever stop now, people are going to get really suspicious.
So if all of a sudden I just say, hey, I'm done, know that some government official came up and paid me off.
And the price is 500,000. Just FYI. I was hoping you'd go a
pays
little
off my
higher.
mortgage and buys me my motorhome so I can travel between Disneyland and Disney World once COVID's over.
Oh, are you one of those Disneyland, Disney World?
Well, there will be plenty of stops in Las Vegas.
Okay.
Probably
like
the majority of time in Vegas.
All right.
But
there you go.
no, it's the community. And that opens up an entire different aspect too.
Yeah.
And it's funny that we talk about this because the phenomena and the community, there's a lot, and you'll be able to attest to this. There's a lot of great people in the community.
Yeah.
There really are some great people who have their hearts on straight. And there are other people in the community that aren't so nice. And you try and stay away from them, and there's no need to name drop or anything like that, but everybody knows who they are.
Yeah.
And I was talking with a couple people about this recently. Nicole Sakic, who's a very good friend of mine. And if you've never had Nicole on the show, you need to get her on the show. She's impressive. And Tom Whitmore from MUFON is another someone who I talked to.
I know Tom. I've seen Tom on your show.
Yeah, Tom's phenomenal. And, there's just been some things that have happened in the community within the last few weeks where it's really got me thinking because, the one thing when you suffer from depression and anxiety, your mind never stops.
Mm.
You're always thinking, oh my God, like what's going on? What am I missing here? What do I need to figure out? What do I need to do to change things or to make my, get my name in that conversation? Because in the end, that's what media is. You need to be a part of the conversation. You need to have people out there who are saying, wow, did you hear that on Spaced Out Radio? Or did you see that on Spaced Out Radio? Or did you hear that dumb comment that Dave made on Spaced Out Radio? You need that to trend in today's day and age. And the one thing that, there's a few things that I've noticed where it's kind of like it's beat me down a little bit recently. And, I finally, I've done some serious thinking over probably the last year, but really stepped it up in the last few weeks where I don't know if the UFO community really wants help or really wants any sort of answers. And I know that's a huge question. That probably equates to literally another 4 hours of programming right there. But the short answer of that is this. Look, you have, if you put up my hands as two dividers, on this side, you have the old guard who has been here forever. Okay. Mm-hmm. They only know two shows. They know Coast to Coast and they know Jimmy Church.
Yeah.
Two great, phenomenal programs. Highly respect both of them. Then on this side, you have the younger guys and ladies who are out there in ufology who, because this crowd here has ignored this crowd forever, okay, these two sides don't give a crap about each other. Yeah. Even though there is friendships forming and working dialogues between the two. So then you get to the people in the middle. Okay. Yeah. The people in the middle, I throw myself in the middle. I throw someone like Tom Whitmore in the middle. I throw Bob McGuire in the middle, even though he's still kind of new, Nicole Sakic, and many others in that middle frame where we're not old enough to be a part of the old guard, but we're not new enough to be a part of the, as Grant Cameron said, the young guns, so to speak. Yeah. And we're kind of like these forgotten voices that are really knowledgeable, but nobody ever goes to, or nobody ever chooses to run with. And so it's an uncomfortable setting, because if you go to the conferences and you look at the conferences that are going on, you see all of these guys, that old school crowd. Yeah. You see the newbies coming in because you want them fresh voices, but there's all this brain power in the middle that nobody ever gets an opportunity. Right? There's somebody in ufology, I'm not going to say who it is, recently got a UFO program, and good for this person, because They're you know, they're going to be on TV and whatever. They announced it on their Facebook. And this person is so new to ufology, probably cannot tell, and I don't mean this to be insulting, probably cannot tell a UFO from a grapefruit in a supermarket. But they are now classified as a UFO expert because of this TV show.
Right.
And I'm sitting there thinking, okay, A, this person is awesome. Love this person. But B, why not have the ability to sit there and say, I'm not ready? Excuse me. You know, if I'm not ready for something, I don't do it. If somebody came up,
I mean, that's you're asking for a lot there, Dave. You're asking for a lot there, buddy.
No,
I mean,
I know,
if I'm a young
I-
kid and a production company comes up to me and like, we like what you got, kid, you know,
well,
give you all the
You're not going to
producers
say
and all.
no.
Yeah, I mean,
it's ignorant to think that they're going to say, you know, I'm not good enough, so I'm going to pass this over to such and such a person. That's not going to happen, right? You know, but there is this, in my opinion, there is this real frustrating lack of respect for the people in the middle. You know, the hardworking younger generation ufology is doing phenomenal work. They're pushing a lot of the social media and a lot of the social narratives and the questions that need to be stated. The old guard is running off of their experiences that they've talked about the last 30, 40 years, some of them. All right. But it's that middle crowd that's sitting there waiting patiently that gets nothing. And it's tough at times.
Yeah.
It's tough at times.
Well, I mean, you know, yeah, I hear what you're saying. I mean, but for like right now we live in this interesting transition where, you know, it's almost like a pay to play format, you know, like if you've got the content and it's good enough and people resonate with it, you become the next Joe Rogan or Andrew Schultz or Lex Fridman or, you know, whoever.
Absolutely.
And I don't think I'm trying to think, you know, there's a couple of podcasts out there. I wouldn't call them paranormal podcasts, but that focus a lot on this topic that are really, really good. And they're quietly sort of some of the biggest, you know, people talking about this, but you know, it's a fine line. It's a fine line, man. And the only thing you can do, at least for me, is just keep my nose down and just keep grinding. And I think eventually it's going to hit a tone and it'll catch, you know, the fire that everybody, you know, either the fans of the show or people who don't know the show eventually will figure out and come on board. But really quickly here, I wanted to, there was a five, what do you call the currency in Canada?
Dollars.
Okay, cool.
Easy enough.
I always love thinking of Canada as like this far off world.
Well, loonies, right? Or is that just for a one or a two?
That's a loonie is a $1 coin. A toonie is a $2 coin. The rest are just dollar bills.
Got it. Excellent.
Fair enough.
So Arturo Martin Camargo asked, Dave, how did the alien look? I'm assuming he's referring to the one you saw in the woods that was really tall. And do you know any areas in British Columbia with many UAP sightings? And then I'll get to a couple other donations here in the chat as well after he answers this question.
The extraterrestrial that I saw in the forest was Samantha Mowat. I never saw the arms. I never saw the legs. I saw the head and I saw the neck and the body. And it was creamy colored. Like if you put too much cream in coffee, like it's really light. That's the color it started out as. And then later in the sighting that we had, it actually changed color to a darker brown. It almost reminds me of like a giraffe type color or a quarter horse type of color, and it never moved. It stayed right still. Like I said, to this day I don't recall seeing any arms or legs. It was just all body in the head and a real bent neck with the head kind of sitting, like if the neck is like bent like that, the head is sitting like right on the edge of it. So I mean, that's kind of what it looked like. In regards to British Columbia, there is a lot of areas that are very, very highly concentrated with UFO sightings. The Mission, British Columbia area in the Fraser Valley, going straight out to Chilliwack, Abbotsford, Aldergrove, very highly seen for UFO craft. There's even been crop circles found in those areas. Vancouver Island around Canadian Forces Base Comox has a lot of UFO sightings. The Caribou area where I live now has a real high concentration of UFO sightings as well. North in Prince George, there's a lot of historic UFO sightings around that town. So there's a lot of places where these craft are being seen in British Columbia.
$25 another Canadian dollar donation. They're just dollars, everyone. Sorry I didn't come on tonight. Just showing some love to Lou and the greater good. Open conversations on this topic with respect and some laughs too. Thank you so much, Artemis, for the love. Truly appreciate it. And then we had a couple of more here. We have got one here from Jared with a $1.99 dono. Thank you so much. Dave, thank you for your vulnerability. God bless. And then we've got a $5 donation from G West that says there are people in the community that like breakfast for dinner. Don't fight it, Dave.
Horrible thing.
So this is Lou, a point of contention on the show for sure.
Lou, I want to add something to what I was saying about the whole bars and the way that everything is distributed.
Yeah,
this is something that is actually quite important to me recently about how does this make me change Spaced Out Radio? How does it, we had a team meeting the other day on how do we change our focus with what we are doing with our subscribers, with our show content and everything. And, it's really made me feel like in trying to push for a lot of different programming and different genres to hit, maybe our listeners don't want us for that heavy news. There's enough heavy news going on around here. And there's a lot of heavy news that is permeating from other shows. Maybe our show, instead of taking that route, needs to go back to sticking with the more experiential type of atmosphere, that more woo crowd, where it's less journalism and more fundamental storytelling, which is what we are looking for. And by the way, congratulations, my troll hit your chat room, by the way.
And, well, who is he?
The Daniel Sheehan guy. This guy here believes that he heard on another radio program that apparently I buy followers for my YouTube channel. And so.
Well, we know it only costs $500,000, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Here's the idiotic part about this moron statement. Okay.
Yeah.
It is this. If I'm buying, two reasons I'll mention. Number one, if you knew how much I hated the number 13, you would know that I wouldn't buy subscribers up to 13,000. And we're at 13,100 on our channel right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Number two, my channel is monetized. And what this idiot doesn't put in his argument, because he hasn't done his research, is the fact that if YouTube catches you, a monetized channel, buying subscribers, they can immediately, it's in the little fine print there, they can immediately remove your earnings potential.
Yeah.
Okay, remove your monetization, number one. But number two, they can cancel your channel. So this moron can sit there and he's got about another 7 profiles. Okay, this moron can sit there and accuse me of buying my followers all he wants. The evidence is right there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I can tell you, I've been doing this for not too long, and I've never heard of any.
There's this other one, Dr.
Is there a website where you can buy followers? Please do me a favor, send me that link, Daniel Sheehan, because if I could do that, I might give it a shot.
No, he's under Dr. Stephen Greer now.
Oh, excellent. That's
see, now he's going to get personal on you and
no, that's
and
okay.
You there.
It's fine. Well, I don't have a neck, just like Lou Elizondo. By the way, Lou Elizondo's neck called into the show last week. It was hilarious. So that was fun. Well, I mean, look, man, how long have you been on YouTube, Dave?
We started on YouTube in 2016, but
That's
we didn't,
that's 5 years ago.
yeah, but
That's a long time, man. What I want to, the point I'm trying to make is in 5 years, you're up to 13,000 subscribers. That's a pretty standard YouTube growth for 5 years.
yeah.
So I would just chill out.
Buying subscribers would be like it's a way to market your channel, but it's the worst way because you're going to get a bunch of subscribers that aren't going to watch your show.
Yeah,
and if you did buy subscribers, who cares, right?
But here comes the other thing too, guys. Is this? If I lied about my experiencers, if I lied about buying followers like this moron continues to harass me on every interview that I'm doing now, okay, like this, it makes no sense because you're ending your credit, you're killing your own credibility of doing what you're doing. If you're going to lie to people, okay, get out of the game.
Yeah.
It's not right. These subjects are way too heavy for most people to even take, let alone get this. I'm not getting paid, right? Like I told you earlier, every dollar we make off Spaced Out Radio goes to pay back my investor in the show. Otherwise, I wouldn't have the studio that I have or anything. And I'm not about to take my one of my lone sources of income, which is my YouTube channel, and screw it up so I all of a sudden have to pay my investor out of my own pocket. Yeah. I mean, there's no thinking in these trolls' comments, and it's getting to the point now where it's obnoxious. It's still hilarious. At first, it pissed me off, but now it's getting to the point where it's getting hilarious because, I mean, if this guy doesn't have anything better to do than to troll me around, so be it. I don't care
I mean,
anymore.
if anything, it's a compliment, take it as a compliment. Somebody cares enough about you to watch you on other people's shows. That's great. That's great. I mean, that's kind of what Howard Stern did. He got the people who hated him the most watched him and listened to him the longest.
Hitchhiker of another nature.
Yeah, honestly, if I had I prefer the audience that hates me, like if it'll probably grow, like get the audience to absolutely loathe you and they're gonna follow you, which is just,
it's
so
like
funny.
you get those people who come into your room and they're like, "Hey host, you're fat."
Great.
Really? Like, or, oh my God, like I'm overweight. Like I didn't know I had a face for radio and a body for print.
Haven't heard that one since, I don't know, third grade. Yeah. It's,
I mean, it's like, come on.
Okay. So real quick, because this is sort of one of the first comments that came up before we even started the show was like, ask him about who's Dave Scott and Chad Smith. Chad Smith is Dave Scott. Now, Chad Smith, I have a lot of love for because he was the first fan of my show. Like, I think that's sort of his thing is he goes and finds all of the new shows and listens to them. And dude, he works at night. So I know he's got a night job and he just listens to all these shows throughout his job. And then when he goes home and he's just a very, very wonderful person. And I got a lot of love for Chad Smith. So can you explain this back and forth between Chad Smith and Dave Scott? What's going on here?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny because I get this, for people who know me on a personal level and not on the radio level, I kind of got a warped sense of humor. Mm-hmm. So one day Chad was in the UFO garage chat room, and he's like, "Hey, Dave Scott, how you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm Chad Smith." and it just kind of started from there. And he's like, "Well, I'm Chad Smith." And I'm like, "No, I'm Chad Smith." And then there's a couple other people in there that I'm like, "I'm so and so, I'm so and so," and I'm just having fun in there because I don't get a lot of time to relax. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm just having a lot of fun with it, and then all of a sudden that night he comes into my show and he's like,
"I'm Dave Scott."
"Hey, Dave Scott." I'm like, "I'm Chad Smith." And now it's kind of over the last week and a half, it's taken its own toll.
It's its own thing.
Yeah.
It's a living and breathing joke.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty cool because I'm just trying to pull something up here that I can share with you guys. Cause it's actually friggin' hilarious how it's kind of morphed into its own thing.
Yeah.
And where is it here?
Well, that's okay. Well, while you're finding that, I got Jack Ryan who wrote, I spoke with the real Lou Elizondo's neck. He feels bad and thinks he came off a little rude. He'd like to call in and clear the air. This is not a joke at the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Well, Michael's not here. We don't have the phone line today. We were going to possibly open this up to call in through the StreamYard link. If you guys wanted to call in, let me know in the chat if you want me to do that. I could open it up maybe for the last 5 or 10 minutes, and we could get some questions here for Dave Scott from the audience. But also, Tixinator here said, bring back the neck. So yeah, I'm sure you probably are unaware, Dave, but last week we got our phone line. We graduated the show to an actual phone line that has no call waiting, and we can't put anybody on hold. So it's hilarious. So we went live with it, and we got a phone call from Lou Elizondo's neck last week, claiming that he was lost in the woods and that he needed help.
Beautiful.
And then the phone line went dead mysteriously.
I haven't listened to Ross Cohort's book yet, but that voice sounded a lot what I imagined his American accent to sound like. So that's my prime #1 suspect.
So you think Ross Coulthard is Lou Elizondo's neck?
I think so.
That's a hell of a leap there, rather. But you know what? I like it. I like it.
Can I show you guys something quickly?
Please, yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to share it here.
Gotcha.
All right. So this is the epitome of Chad Smith. This happened yesterday where one of our listeners, the Luscious Lotus, she actually named her new beta fish Chad Smith.
Perfect.
It was awesome. It was awesome.
I love it. Well, yesterday I had somebody turn me into Luis Zamora, which was hilarious. It's now my profile picture.
That was good.
Well, that's what I love about this community, man. They're hilarious. Like even when they're mean, I think it's hilarious. So I get a kick out of the community. So I'm lost, brother. Oh God, so funny. So you guys, let me know. You know what I didn't do? I didn't read today's poll because we forgot that our Artemis isn't here today, so I skipped today's poll. So let me go over today's poll real quickly. And man, was today's poll super random? But the question was, what did you do with your Beanie Baby collection? 14% said in a muffled voice, drowned in beanies. 15% said, I run a little site called Only Beanies. 16% said proudly displayed at home, and then 54% said just threw them away. It had to be done. So yeah, that was today's poll. No real reason or rhyme to it. I just was thinking about Beanie Babies today for some reason. You know what I like to do? Really weird. Completely off topic. I'll go on YouTube if I'm busy during the day, and I'll YouTube old commercials. Like they have like these hour-long blocks of vintage commercials from the 70s and 80s and 60s, any era really. And I'd listen to these old I don't know why I do this. Like it's so strange, but it's cool to go back and see how advertisers used to advertise in the 90s versus the 80s versus the 50s. I don't know why I'm interested in that, but anyway. So let me, did you guys want me to open up? You know what? I'm just going to do it. I'm going to give you guys the invite here to the show. If you guys want to come hang out with Dave Scott, Spaced Out Radio, want to hang out with us. If you have any questions about the big phone home, feel free to call. You don't have to show up on camera. You could block out the camera if you don't want to show your face. You could do that. So it's kind of like a phone call. Just be connected to a Wi-Fi and don't be naked if you do decide to use your camera. So that rule has definitely come back. Rather, did you have any questions that maybe we missed during the last almost 2 hours here?
Yeah, we covered a lot. I guess one thing that was on my mind was when you were talking about channeling and stuff like that, and your I forget your partner meditating. I wonder if you have a chance to do that, or if that has you think that has any role in this and might open up lines of communication.
If I had time, I probably would. Like meditation and getting into the whole channeling aspect. I mean, you got to be in the right mindset, doing it a couple of days a week before you even think about channeling a spirit. And for me, it's always subjective too, because is it my imagination talking, or is it something completely different? And, that's one of the questions that I have for a lot of this scenario is, how real is it? What's going on?
All right, Dave, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but we just got a streamer in called the Real Lou Elizondo. Okay, hello, is this the Real Lou Elizondo? How you doing?
This is Lou Elizondo's neck, brother. Is there an echo? Are you hearing me clearly?
We're hearing you clearly, Lou Elizondo's neck. Go ahead. What do you have to say? Are you out of the woods?
Hello, Ross.
Right now, I'm at a Best Western in Rancho Cucamonga. I'm holed up for a little bit. But I just wanted to say I meant no disrespect, none at all, to you or anyone else listening to the program, brother. Especially to the man upstairs, my body, whom you all may know as Luis Daniel Brother Elizondo IV, a true American patriot, period, all right? Sometimes all this hard work is a real pain in the neck, brother, so I removed myself from the equation. And unfortunately, this time around, I got lost. And I got deep, but thanks to you folks here at the Unidentified Celebrity Review, the most patriotic podcast playing, I got back on course. Wait a minute.
Oh my God.
Who's that? Oh no! Oh no! It's me, Stephen Greer Spine. How are you? It's
no.
to see you all here. Look at all those super chats. I wish I had more super chats. I am holding Lou Elizondo's neck hostage. I need 10 million to release him. You'll hear from us soon. Goodbye.
Is that
I don't know what was more bizarre, the
Elizondo's
stories
neck
that
gone? Is he gone?
Dave, you were telling all day, or what just happened right there?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, okay? Lose the Stephen Greer part of the shtick. You don't need the Stephen Greer. Just stick with Lou Elizondo's neck. I lost you there, but damn it, that was funny.
Oh
dude.
my God.
I think that's going to be a thing now. That's going to be a thing now.
You need that thing.
I have no choice. Lou Elizondo's neck apparently has an open line to this phone every time he wants to call, so go for it. If anybody else out there wants to call in this show, we've got about 7 minutes left. Dave, real quick, if you can fill in the folks, where can they find Spaced Out Radio? How you do shows 7 days a week, man, on that channel between you and all of your sort of co-hosts. So if you can, just run us down, who contributes to the show and how people can see it.
I got a great team. I'm so blessed. Starting off with Lynn Wallington, who takes over Saturday and Sunday nights, Gary Spikes Jr., who runs our YouTube channel. And that he's really one of the biggest reasons over the last couple of months that, we have been buying subscribers to the fullest that we potentially can, there is Gail Shirk, Captain Shirk, we call her. She does all of our news run. John Hudson, who we just started a few weeks ago, a brand new feature called the Unbiased UFO Report, where we bring in a bunch of news from happening around the community. He's been fantastic behind the scenes. We have Nicholas, we have Emily, and we have Kate, who takes care of our social media and all of our bookings of our guests. It's a real tight team that really, we're all on the same page, and we're all pushing to try and bring it up to the next level of what is going on. And you need, in order to be successful, you need good people around you, and I'm very blessed that we have that.
No, it definitely seems like you do, and I'm happy that you do as well. And I thought this was Mark Salzman probably highlighted the best line of that neck rant, and that was that Lou Elizondo was smoking. I don't know if he said smoking crack, but he was at the bit that I loved was that he was at the Best Western in Rancho Cucamonga. Like, he's really, whoever's calling is definitely in California to know where Rancho Cucamonga is. Like, what a maniac. Dude, I love it.
That was awesome.
Dude, that was cool. Well, Dave, Scott, Spaced Out Radio, man, thank you so much for being vulnerable, bringing the woo. I know that I really, man, I wish we had some more time to sort of ask you some more questions about the experiences. We never even got into the alien that you saw, the big gray. So next time you're back, we'd love to talk about that. You're going to be joining us for the Big Phone Home, right?
Yes, I am. Looking forward to that.
You're going to be there on Saturday. Also, Lynn Waller is going to be joining and partaking in the events as well with our Ladies Hour, which is going to be 3 really great days with the ladies taking over the show. So that'll be really cool. A couple of guests that have signed on recently. We've got Nick Pope's going to be joining us, so that'll be a lot of fun. We also got Andy McGrillen from Spaced Out Radio and Kevin Knuth. So that is going to be a huge, or not a huge, but that's just going to be a killer conversation. So definitely like, subscribe, share the channel. Dave, real quick, before you head out of here, my man, where can everybody find Spaced Out Radio?
SpacedOutRadio.com, Spaced Out Radio on YouTube. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button on Instagram, Spaced Out Radio Show, Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. And I want to say a big thank you to you, Lou, and your team for, sharing so much love for us. And you're in our chat room quite a bit, hanging on out. Much love to you, man. You've got a great thing going on here. Very blessed that you asked me to come on and share some time with you. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, man, no problem. I mean, yeah, the respect is mutual, my friend. I really appreciate you inviting me on the show. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time, so I don't feel like you're part of this middle group that people don't pay attention to, because I think you inspire a lot more people than you realize. So I think eventually all good things come to the hard work. So keep working, man. Keep grinding. I really enjoyed this. This was a lot of fun.
Appreciate you guys.
Open
Thank
door
you.
for you, and go take care of your son. Have a great show tonight, and we'll see you soon.
Take care. Peace.
Rather be squidding. That was fun.
Ooh,
Thanks,
yeah, that was
thanks, guys. Great show. Subscribing. Thank you, Angie.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Unidentified Celebrity Review family, girl.
good
Welcome.
place.
It's a good place to be. We have a lot of fun. We take the topic seriously. We just don't take ourselves too seriously, Angie. So I hope you're in for that. I'm glad to see you here. Catherine Chetney looks like she's new to the show. I've never seen Catherine in the chats before. So if you're new, welcome. You guys, that was a lot of fun with Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio. Don't forget, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I think maybe during this weekend, and let me know, you guys, hit me up on Twitter. I was going to live stream me using the Big Phone Home website, sending out emails, I can't make phone calls because in the state of California, I can't do that live on air. So I can't show you that part of it. But next time, rather, we'll do our little, we'll do it next time, because me and Rather, we're going to do a, what do they call those?
Role playing?
A little role play where Rather was going to be the Senate aide.
The really mean intern
really
that's answering the phones and watching the
answering the phones, and I was going to use our call list or our call bullet points. So when you call into Congress, you have a list of bullet points of things you can ask for if you do get somebody on the phone. So we were going to role play that, but we ran out of time, so we're not going to do that today. Maybe next week, but possibly this weekend. Again, let me know what you guys think. Hit me up on Twitter. Do you want to see me use the Big Phone Home website? I think it'd be pretty useful for folks who are trying to navigate. If they have any questions, we can answer those questions live on the fly. So I'm leaning toward, I think we're going to do that. So stay tuned. Make sure you ring the bell. Click subscribe. What else?
Thank you, Nicola, another new subscriber.
Oh, excellent. Hello, Nicola Messori. Thank you guys for bringing the show together. Never heard of this channel. I subscribed. It sounds like a good one to listen to. Well, thank you so much for being here. We truly appreciate it. And don't forget, you guys, we've got the show on Spotify. We've got the show on iTunes. We've got the show pretty much anywhere you can find podcast anywhere. So if you're on the road, if you're at work, go check out the Unidentified Celebrity Review and download the podcast. This podcast will be up within the hour, so we update them pretty regularly. If you guys have any questions, you can hit us up at the bigphonehome@gmail.com. Go ahead and hit us up there. Before we get out of here, I want to say thank you to the sponsor, BlueMarlinChronicles.com, purveyors of the world's finest fishing tackle since 1995. I want to say thank you to DOS Tapes. They provide all of the tunes that you hear on the show. Rather Be Squidding, want to give a huge shout out and thank you to him. He's been working overtime this week for the Unidentified Celebrity Review. Got up at super early this morning to go do a podcast, and then join me here. Normally we're on Singularity Lab on Thursdays, but because Mike's sick, we stepped in, we took over the show, and so I hope you guys enjoyed it. And so thank you, Rather, for being here.
Yeah, always fun to be here.
Rather, again, remind the folks what we're working on this week for the new video for Rather Be Squidding channel.
Yeah, I'm working on interpretations of quantum mechanics and how there might be some interpretations that make a little bit more sense and what that might mean. So
Awesome.
Go over there, subscribe, and stay tuned. I think it'll be interesting.
And Mark Solomons here says, Lou, getting Kevin Knuth was a big get. Hid one of the best real scientists open to the phenomena. Yeah, man, it was, well, we could thank Rich Hoffman from the SCU. Rich Hoffman helped us get Kevin Knuth, and Rich Hoffman will also be there. The idea is to make scientists and military guys and journalists all in the same panel, and let's see what happens. Let's see what kind of discussions we can elicit, because that's what the whole day's about. The whole day's about having the discussion both from an experiencer level, from a journalistic level, from a scientific level, and from a military and veteran level. Like we're going to talk about all aspects of the UAP phenomenon, and we're going to try and respect everybody's opinions and viewpoints as best we can, because we need everybody to come to the table here. We're all eating from the same trough, so let's treat each other with some respect. You could question everything. And that's what we try to do here. So I'm glad that you guys are here for it. What else, Rather? What else am I missing? Anything?
Get well soon, Mike. Looking forward to his triumphant return.
I hope he's here tomorrow. Oh, yeah, that's right. Tomorrow, guys, we've got Britton Wonderland, who's got a brand new channel, and I really like her work, and I wanted to highlight her work for you guys. So she's going to be here tomorrow. So that's going to be a fun conversation. Rather, have you seen her channel yet?
Yeah, no, she's doing amazing work. I'm doing really good work. Tomorrow.
What's hilarious is she's hit me up privately before she started making videos for Britton Wonderland and asking me all these questions. I'm like, girl, I'm not a researcher. You're asking way better questions than I would. Maybe we need you on my show. I can't wait to talk to her because she's doing some great work, and maybe we could get her to be part of the Big Phone Home too. That would be cool as well.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
So I can't wait to talk to her tomorrow. Hopefully Mike is here tomorrow. We'll see. I'll probably give him the day off just to make sure he gets better. He's got the whole week off because we need Mike ready to go for the Big Phone Home too. And that's it, you guys. Thank you so much for coming aboard, getting weird with us here on another episode of the Unidentified Celebrity Review, your home for credible news, reviews, and commentary on everything UAP and UFOs. My name's Luis Jimenez. That's Rather Be Squidding. Until next time, you guys, stay safe out there. Peace. I'm going to tell y'all right now, all of these wonderful people would not be here without Patreon supporters like you. If you enjoy credible news, reviews, and commentary on UFOs and UAPs 5 days a week, you want to support this show. What's your name? Marty. Marty, look how easy this is, Marty. Pick up your phone. Boom! You're a Patreon member. I mean, look, it's so easy. You just click the link, which is right here. Just for $1 a month, you can support this show. Just fill out the information and pledge what's comfortable for you. It could be $1, $5, $10, or who knows. Just support.